Hello, this is Curtis Crowe, the Photo Pro here, and we are on location in a farm in Goodles, Michigan to talk about minimum focusing distance with your lens. Specifically, we are going to talk about the 24-105 minimum focusing distance. Why? Because if you notice on here, it says macro. But if you have this lens or you are interested in this lens, there's some things you really should know. But to get started, we're going to go ahead and look at the 50mm 1.8 and take a look at the minimum focusing distance of a standard lens. And then we're going to come back to this and show you exactly how well the macro feature on here works and talk to you a little bit about why this doesn't even compare to, let's say, the 100mm f2.8 macro lens from Canon. So what is macro? When we think about macro, we always think about the 100mm macro lens, the f2.8L lens. It's the most glorious one. Why? It's got 1:1 zoom ratio. When what that means is you can get right on top of that subject and it'll still be able to focus. But if you were to do that, you would have issues with light, but that's really for a different video for a different day. So in the real world application, how good is this macro feature? Now, if you look at the 200mm L2.8 lens, you'll notice that that has 1.5 meters of minimum focus distance. Typically, the longer the range, the longer the minimum focusing distance is. But they'll put extra elements in here on certain glass in order to macro your lens so that we can get closer than what the standard optics for a lens will do without the macro feature. Now, some figures on the internet say it's closer to a 1:3 ratio. I haven't been able to verify that. I will be the first one to say it, but if that is true, that kind of gives you a better idea. And I will say though that the macro feature in this lens is extremely useful. And I'm going to show you an example of a regular lens that most people have, the nifty 50 minimum focusing distance, and what the focus distance for the 24-105 will give you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a picture with the 50mm. So we're going to go ahead and switch lenses. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a picture of the steering wheel, and then we're going to take a picture of some of the gauges and nozzles and switches that is actually on this very old rustic tractor. So we go ahead and take a very comfortable, I'm sitting here relaxed, as you can see, and we're going to go ahead and take a picture of the steering wheel, and we're going to see at minimum focus distance, comfortably. Can I get a shot? No, that is not in focus. Let's see here. I'd have to get about this far back in order to be in focus. So to take the shot, boom. So just sitting back right here, I'm going to say that is about 1.5 feet away from the steering wheel itself. So let's go ahead and take some pictures of the switches and stuff like that. Okay. See, I want to get right in here where I don't get the steering wheel, and I can't do that because the minimum focusing distance won't let me. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of what I can get. And as you can tell, the steering wheel is still in the way. This bar here is still in the way. Let's go ahead and switch lenses and see what we can get with the 24-105 macro lens. So now we're hanging on to the 24-105 here, and we're going to see what we can get in focus. Now, granted, you do have to be aware that there is a focal length difference. That aside, even if I'm going to shoot at 50mm, there's still a major difference in the minimum focusing distance between these two lenses. So even if we want to shoot at 50, let's see what we can get for our macro. Oh, look at that. Comfortably right here. So as you can tell, I'm able to get much, much closer with this. And we're going to take a picture of a few other things, and we're going to get as close as we can. And as you can tell here, we're not in the way of the steering wheel, and we're going to do this shot here. And as you can tell here, we're able to get much closer. Steering wheel's not in the way, and even the bar is less in the way because we're able to get in closer, we're able to shoot in wider, and a combination of those two things allows us to get rid of a lot of the distractions of, let's say, the steering wheel itself when we want to get really close to these nozzles. Now, let's actually check how that bokeh looks with that macro on at our maximum zoom. So let's go in like this, and let's actually see how close we can get. So I am at here, I'm no more than 7 inches away right now, and you can just tell that there's a lot of bokeh in here. The details are still sharp where it is in focus, but because we're shooting at the minimum focusing distance and we're shooting at the maximum focal length, the depth of field is extremely shallow. You can really get in there and see that that detail in there. And if we wanted to even HDR this with the new features in Lightroom, go ahead and give us a really nice HDR so that way we can still get some of the shadows in there as well as some of the detail. So my thoughts on this. Yes, I'm able to get closer. Is it a true macro in the sense that a lot of people think of it in? Absolutely not. Is it useful? Very much so. As you can tell by just taking a few pictures of this tractor, sitting here in the tractor seat, there is a significant usefulness to this lens opposed to a standard lens because I can get in a few inches closer, and when you're talking about minimum focusing distance, a few inches closer can be a huge difference in the overall quality of the photo. You can really frame your shot better, you can make sure things get out of the way by positioning yourself differently. There's a lot of really great advantages to having a macro of any level on your lens. So for the people that think that the macro in this lens is pointless, I'd like to let you guys know that today we just proved them wrong. There is usefulness to this. For you bokeh lovers out there, it really makes a difference when you're trying to boost your blurry backgrounds and stuff like that by getting in closer. For the people that like to do portraits, it makes a huge difference because you want to get in close, you want to see the details in the eyes and the face, and this lens will let you do that without having to stand too far back. Not to mention, any lens that restricts you from doing what you want to do shouldn't be a lens that you should be using. So when you get too close and you hear that focusing motor slap back and forth because it's trying to focus in an area that it can't, that is your lens literally holding you back. So that is definitely something to think about. Would you be using this lens for macro photography? Most likely not. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. You're probably not going to be using it for macro photography. You're not going to be able to get close enough to get great shots of bugs, but you will get great shots of flowers. You'll be able to get great shots of the little gizmos at an old tractor. You can really get in close and personal with your human subjects, but it doesn't give you the 1-to-1 ratio. So in every respect, I think that this feature in this lens is definitely worth its weight in gold. I use it quite frequently because I like to get up close and personal and fill my frame. And it's hard to fill a frame when you have a standard lens that doesn't have any kind of macro feature. Obviously, you have to stand so far back that you might not be able to fill the frame with whatever you're taking a photo of. Give this lens some consideration. If you're on the fence about it, whether you should get it or not, I highly, highly recommend it. With this macroing feature, it's versatile with 24-105 focal length, and you can do a lot with this lens. So I hope this answers some questions as far as the macro feature for you about this lens. And let me know in the comments down below if there's any questions you have about this lens. I'd be more than happy to either answer it for you or even make a video for you about it. This has been Curtis Crowe, the Photo Pro, and as I always do, toodles.